First of all, if you don't know who I am, my name is Robbie Greenwell. I'm a BA Honours Visual Arts student and this is my creative video of my final major project. My final major project is an extension of my professional context. I took my existing branding and started to develop and tailor the existing assets into a proposal. My main goal of the whole project was to create professional quality t-shirts with my own artwork. The reason why I wanted to achieve this as my final major project is once I finish the course, I plan to create my own clothing line business. This is my proposal. Feel free to pause the video as I'm going to continue the video as I am limited for time. These are the modular objectives. They are my main intent for what I want to achieve in the final major project. Before I started creating my t-shirt designs, it was key to research into other brands similar to my style and identify what their strengths and weaknesses are of each brand. I will run quickly through the brands I looked at. From what I could gather from the brands, my art style was very similar to the Instagram brands, and because of this I soon realised that it was hard for me to identify my style to make it stand out. This was primarily due to having the same influences such as the dark gothic art style and other influences from the tattoo designs and skateboard culture. Even with the same style of art, this was not going to put me off doing my designs. The only thing I would need to work on in the future was branding my art style to make sure I was different from the rest of them. The other major brand I looked at was EMP, which is a large brand that focuses on selling primarily band merch, but it also offers several other products such as game merch, pop figures, and other apparel ranges. Since this is a much larger organisation than myself, I should primarily focus on building my branding first before I go down other avenues and offering other products. The Zephysos brand is an interesting concept because of its niche target market. It is able to sell high quality t-shirts at a high price. It does this by focusing on one subject area, such as Dungeons & Dragons, and by tailoring its artwork into its own style of metal art, it has become a very original concept for its branding. By looking at this brand, I should do something similar in the future, as my current style blends in with most of the other Instagram brands that I've looked at recently, such as Herbojack Clothing and Dark Days Apparel. Before I talk about the creative processes, it is worth mentioning COVID-19 had a big impact on the creative processes, as I did not get to access any equipment until about early March. Because of this, my time was cut in half for what processes I could explore. This left me with two options, mainly sublimation and screen printing. I chose to do sublimation as one of my mediums because I had access to the equipment on the campus, which allowed me to experiment and develop my final products. What I've learnt about the process is it's quick and easy to develop pieces, and all I had to do was set up the imagery to the specific measurements and print off onto sublimation transfer paper. Because of this, the process is more cost effective for me to print out my visual components on a cheaper budget. From my experimentation of sublimation printing, I found a couple of key precautions I need to take before printing my final designs. Firstly, you can't use duct tape to hold your image in place because when this is heat pressed, the tape melts under the heat, leaving the remnants of where the tape was placed. To prevent this, I will have to use heat-resistant tape in the future, as this will not transfer. The other precaution I need to be aware of is marks on the bed, as these also transfer onto the shirt, leaving ugly burn marks. To prevent this, I can put heat-resistant paper over the t-shirt to protect the shirt from any marks on the bed. Even with the experimentation, the outcome of the images was aesthetically pleasing, so I jumped straight into producing the final sublimation t-shirts. Now looking back, I really should have experimented more, just in case there were some anomalies or precautions I had to take in the creation of the finals. Fortunately, when producing my final shirts, there were no mistakes or anomalies that occurred, which meant I was justified in skipping a lot of the experimental processes as I had professionally looking products. For the screen printing process, I found that this process was also cost effective for me to create my finals, but time effectiveness on the other hand was not, as I had to dedicate more time on this as I was not comfortable from past experiences working with the screen printing process, as a number of variations can affect the final outcome of what you can create. On screen is a small list of the outcomes that can affect your creation. From the multitude of experiments, I found that one or two passes was needed in the creation of these. I'm doing these tests just to gauge what is the most optimal amount of passes I need to do before printing any final pieces. With a multitude of different outcomes from the experimentations, I was not confident in my ability to produce a high quality shirt from my perspective. This was looking like I would need most of my t-shirts to produce a high quality image. But because of time and resources, I limited my final design to 2 shirts. The reason for this was to save money and equipment, as I was not wasting 2 shirts on the process that had varied results. Luckily, on my first attempt of producing the image came out fairly clean, but the main issue was the placement. So all I did for this was flip the shirt over, printed it onto the back to gauge the alignment, as I knew this would be a waste of a product anyway. Originally, like everyone, I took my photos firstly on my phone, but these were quickly discarded as I only needed these as evidence I had created my final pieces. If COVID wasn't going on, I originally planned to take some photos in abandoned buildings, but due to strict travel restrictions, I decided the best place for my photos would be North Shields, as I knew the area quite well, and there were some neglected areas where I could contrast the 2 shirts against the background. Originally, myself and Kiki Lorna of Raw Like Ink were going to share the board as both of our work share similarities. We talked about having a display that showcased both of our work in the style of verses, which you normally see on a name of a song or featured artists in the song title. Due to more space opened up for our group, we had more access to the whole board. This meant I had more room to fill. To creatively use the space, I brought in palettes and mesh to give a more urban feel to the exhibition. By using the palettes and mesh, I decided to hang my photos and t-shirts off of this to give a more depth of field. The upcycled materials were more cost effective for the whole exhibition, as I didn't have to pay any money for them, and by the end of the exhibition they could be also recycled if needed. Reflecting on my journey so far, I believe I've created great final outcomes that were to a professional scale. I do believe there is a marketplace for me to sell my t-shirts, but I feel the amount of similarity between brands is hard to diverse my artwork with, as it's more likely to get lost in the void of Instagram, which means I would have to take a different approach to advertise and sell my artwork. Out of the 2 processes that I used, I'm more comfortable with sublimation over screen printing. Evidence shows that I was able to create more final products with sublimation. Even with the amount of experimentation I did with screen printing, I was not fully confident I could achieve a professional looking product. Since my journey is over now, I'm more likely to put money towards this sublimation machinery and equipment, as I can see a possible business avenue opening up for me. The only thing I would need to work on is making sure that my style and artwork is unique enough to stand out over the other brands. Thank you for watching my Final Major project.